She once laughed at an old woman in front of everyone, but years later, destiny punished her in the most heartbreaking way. Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled deep in a valley surrounded by green hills and golden fields, there lived a young girl named Amina. She was known everywhere for her beauty and her lively spirit. Her eyes sparkled with mischief, her laughter carried through the market square, and her steps were so light that people often turned their heads just to watch her pass. But behind her charm, there lived something darker, a pride that grew stronger with every compliment, and a sharp tongue that often wounded those around her. Amina's family was modest, not rich but respected. Her father was the village blacksmith, his hands always blackened with soot and his chest glistening with sweat as he hammered glowing iron into tools and weapons. Her mother, a gentle woman with a voice soft as the morning breeze, spent her days weaving cloth and tending the household. They raised their daughter with values of humility and respect, reminding her again and again that beauty fades but character stays. Yet Amina, showered with admiration from her peers, slowly let arrogance take root in her heart. She wanted to be the center of attention, and she found that mocking others was the quickest way to get there. One hot afternoon, on a bustling market day, Amina walked through the crowd with her friends, following closely behind. Women had laid out baskets of tomatoes, peppers, and yams on woven mats, and men bargained loudly over goats and chickens. Dust swirled around the feet of passers-by, and the air smelled of roasted corn and palm wine. Amina wore a brightly colored cloth wrapped elegantly around her waist, and she carried herself with a confidence that drew eyes wherever she went. Her friends whispered and giggled, ready to echo anything clever or cruel she might say. As they moved through the crowded path, Amina noticed an old woman struggling to carry a heavy basket filled with cassava roots and firewood. Her back was bent, her steps slow, her clothes torn and faded. The old woman's name was Mariama. Everyone in the village knew her. She was a widow who had lived through countless hardships, a woman of quiet strength and deep wisdom. People respected her, though she lived in poverty and solitude. But Amina saw only weakness. She saw only age, and she despised it. With a smirk curling on her lips, Amina raised her voice so everyone nearby could hear. "Look at that turtle, even the ground walks faster than she does." Her friends burst into laughter. A few villagers nearby, embarrassed but unwilling to oppose Amina, forced nervous chuckles. Mariama stopped in her tracks. Slowly, she lifted her gaze and fixed her eyes on Amina. There was no anger in her look, no bitterness, not even humiliation. It was a deep, steady gaze, as if she could see through the years, as if she were staring not at the girl Amina was, but at the woman she would one day become. Mariama set her basket down, wiped the sweat from her wrinkled forehead, and spoke with a voice calm and firm. "My child," she said, "never despise what you might become tomorrow. Life is long, and it has a way of turning laughter into tears." Amina rolled her eyes. She tossed her head back and laughed louder, mocking the old woman's words. She strutted away, her friends following like shadows, repeating her insults as if they were a chorus in a cruel play. That day, Amina believed she had triumphed. She thought the old woman's warning was nothing but the mutterings of age. What she did not realize was that her words and her pride had planted a seed, one that life itself would one day water and make grow inside her own fate. Seasons came and went. The rains fell and nourished the soil, then gave way to dry winds that cracked the earth. Harvests flourished, sometimes failed, but the rhythm of village life never stopped. Children were born, elders passed away, and young girls became women. Amina blossomed into her teenage years, more radiant than ever. Her beauty drew suitors from far and wide. Young men came to her family with baskets of fruit, bolts of cloth, and promises of comfortable futures. She entertained some, dismissed others with mocking remarks, convinced that her beauty gave her the power to choose and discard as she pleased. Her arrogance never softened. When another girl spilled water from a heavy pot, Amina laughed the loudest. When an old man miscounted coins at the market, she made biting jokes at his expense. And deep in her heart, the memory of mocking Mariama remained a source of pride. She often thought of that moment as proof of her cleverness, a story she could laugh about whenever she felt bored. She never once considered that life might still be listening. When the time came for her to marry, her family received many proposals. Finally, they agreed to one from a young man named Musa, the son of a family of traders. Musa was kind, hard-working, and genuinely in love with Amina. On the day of their wedding, drums echoed through the valley, dancers spun beneath the stars, and the whole village celebrated their union. People whispered that Amina and Musa would have a happy home filled with children, a house of laughter and legacy. At first, it seemed true. The first months of their marriage were filled with joy. Amina basked in her role as a young bride, dressing in bright new clothes, entertaining visitors, and listening to the constant praise of her beauty and charm. But slowly, shadows began to creep in. Other women her age began giving birth, cradling infants wrapped in soft cloths, while Amina's womb remained empty. 1 month turned into 2, 2 into 6, 6 into 12. She brushed away the worry, telling herself it was only a matter of time. But as the years trickled by, the whispers began. Why has Amina not conceived yet? Some murmured, perhaps the spirits have cursed her. Others said, maybe she is paying for something. At first, Amina ignored them. But soon, the whispers grew louder, heavy enough to weigh on her every step. She could not escape the stares, the questions, the pity that slipped into people's voices. And every night, as she lay beside Musa, with tears stinging her eyes, she remembered Mariama's words, never despise what you might become tomorrow. The years rolled on like an endless river, and each season that passed without a child deepened the wound in Amina's heart. In the beginning, Musa comforted her. He would hold her close and whisper, do not worry, my love. God has his time for everything. We will have children when it is meant to be. His voice was tender, his patience steady, but even the gentlest river can wear down stone if it flows long enough. As the months became years, even Musa's reassurances grew weaker, and his eyes began to carry the same silent questions that haunted Amina's dreams. The village was merciless. A woman's worth, they said, was measured by the life she could bring into the world. Mothers with babies tied to their backs gave Amina looks filled with pity, sometimes disguised as kindness, sometimes sharpened like knives. At gatherings, when conversations turned to children, Amina would smile and nod, but her stomach twisted inside her. At night, when the celebrations were over and she returned home, she would fall to her knees and weep in the silence of her room. Each tear seemed to echo those words she had once ignored, never despise what you might become tomorrow. By her 3rd year of marriage, the whispers had turned into open discussions. Women would sit outside their homes, pounding millet with wooden pestles, and when Amina passed, they would lower their voices, but not enough to hide their meaning. She is barren, one would mutter. Her beauty was wasted, another would sigh. It must be a curse. Did she anger someone long ago? Each word was a stone hurled at her spirit, and in her heart, Amina remembered Mariama. She remembered the bent back, the weary steps, the calm eyes that had stared straight into her soul. She remembered her own mocking laughter, the crowd that had joined her, and the satisfaction she had felt at humiliating the old woman. For the first time, guilt began to gnaw at her. She had once mocked Mariama's weakness, and now she lived a weakness of her own. Musa's family grew restless. His mother, a stern woman with sharp features and a sharper tongue, visited often. She would sit in the courtyard, arms crossed, and complain loudly enough for Amina to hear. A son must have children to carry his name. What is the use of a wife who cannot fill her husband's home with laughter? Perhaps Musa should take another wife. These words pierced Amina deeper than knives. The thought of her husband marrying another woman, holding another woman, having children with someone else, it burned her with jealousy and despair, yet she had no defense. Her womb was silent, her prayers unanswered. Desperate, she turned to healers. She drank bitter herbs that made her stomach churn. She visited distant villages, paying fortune tellers and herbalists, each promising a cure. Some told her to fast for days, others to bathe in rivers under the moonlight. She obeyed them all, clinging to hope, but nothing changed. Month after month, her body betrayed her. Hope became despair, and despair became bitterness. One evening, after another painful visit from her mother-in-law, Amina sat outside her house, staring at the stars. The night was cool, and the sound of crickets filled the silence. She thought of Mariama again. Was it possible that her cruelty had cursed her? Could words, spoken so carelessly in her youth, have turned into chains around her womb? The thought would not leave her mind. It pressed on her heart, heavy and suffocating. For the first time, she whispered aloud into the darkness, "Old mother, if you can hear me, forgive me. I did not know what is doing." But forgiveness is not found in the wind, and the stars gave her no reply. Days later, while walking through the market, she saw Mariama again. The old woman was still alive, still bent under the weight of years, still carrying baskets heavier than her frail body seemed able to bear. Amina froze. Memories of her childhood mockery crashed over her like waves. Shame burned her cheeks and her legs trembled. For a moment, she considered turning away, hiding herself in the crowd. But something inside her pushed her forward. She approached slowly, each step heavy, as if she were dragging years of guilt behind her. Mariama noticed her, but her face showed no sign of recognition. To Mariama, Amina was just another villager, one face among many. But Amina knew. Her heart raced as she spoke. "Mother," she said, her voice trembling, "do you remember me?" Mariama looked at her closely. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the young woman standing before her. Slowly, the old woman nodded. "Yes, I remember. You were the girl who laughed at me when I could barely carry my basket. Amina's chest tightened, tears welled in her eyes, but she did not look away. She sank to her knees on the dusty ground, not caring about the curious stares of the market crowd. Forgive me, she whispered. I was foolish, I was cruel. Now I suffer, and I know it is because of the way I treated you. Please, mother, forgive me. The market went silent. People stopped bargaining. Women stopped pounding their grain. All eyes turned to the sight of proud, beautiful Amina, kneeling before the old woman she once humiliated. The moment stretched like eternity. Mariama's face softened. She reached out her wrinkled hand and touched Amina's head gently. My daughter, she said, her voice calm and warm, I am not the one who punishes you. Life itself teaches us. What you give to the world comes back to you, sometimes in ways you cannot expect. But forgiveness is always possible. If your heart has changed, then your path can change too. Rise. Do not carry the chains of yesterday forever. Amina sobbed, her tears falling into the dust. She clutched the old woman's hand as if it were the only rope pulling her from a dark pit. In that moment, something inside her broke open, not her body, but her spirit. The walls of pride she had built for years began to crumble. But even as Mariama forgave her, Amina's struggles did not vanish overnight. Forgiveness was not a magic spell to unlock her womb. Her body remained the same, her challenges unchanged. Yet her heart felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. For the first time in years, she felt the faint warmth of hope, not hope for children, but hope for peace. The story doesn't end here. The next part holds a twist you won't expect, so don't miss what's coming next.